Hello, everyone. I'm Michaela Parker, founder and executive director for the Alliance for Data Science and AI, or ADSA. And I'm here to welcome you to our Listen and Lunch AI webinar series, where we bring you experts from around our community to share their approaches to incorporating AI in teaching and research in higher education. Today, we are welcoming Tony Thrall, who will talk with us about using AI to deepen student learning and what data science education can teach us about effective AI integration. But first, a quick reminder that this event, like all ADSA events, is governed by our code of conduct, which you can find linked at this QR code or in the footer of our website. And briefly, for those of you unfamiliar with ADSA, we are a community of data science and AI leaders, practitioners, and educators who believe in a just, equitable future where data science and AI are thoughtfully applied in all domains for the benefit of all. You can learn more about our events and activities, just like this one, at our website. It's also linked in the QR code on this slide. So today, as I said, I am thrilled to welcome Tony Thrall, author and recently retired data scientist from the National Security Agency, where he spent more than a decade in workforce development and data science talent acquisition. He holds a PhD in statistics from UC Berkeley and a master's in education from Stanford University. He is currently developing an AI thought partner system for his open textbook, Exploratory Data Analysis for Machine Learning, in partnership, by the way, with our ADSA community. So welcome, Tony.
Well, thank you, everyone. And thank you, Michaela, for such a nice introduction. I want to describe today what I call the AI conundrum. And let me proceed to outline the talk. I'll describe the problem, a reframing of the problem, a proof of concept I'm offering. I'm suggesting a study and also suggesting that we form a working group. So let me proceed without delay. I'm very interested in discussion comments at the end. So the conundrum is that faculty are worried about student over-reliance on AI, and they're worried about cheating, student cheating using AI. Yet at the same time, they believe AI literacy is essential for their students' careers. So the faculty, not only are the faculty thinking this, that the administration is giving edicts at various institutions, pulling the faculty one way or the other. We're stuck in a state of confusion right now, I believe, in general. Why are we stuck? Well, again, 87% of faculty have written student-facing AI policies, but only report departmental guide, but only, I guess it was less than that, 35% report department level guidelines. So the commercial default for AI interaction is to provide answers. So that is the default student AI interaction. It's getting answers. Now, if the only thing AI does is produce finished work, the only institutional response is surveillance. The policy discussion, the policy conversation is stuck because the student AI interaction pattern is stuck. So let's reframe the problem. The usual question is, how do we prevent students from using AI to bypass learning? A better question, how do we design AI interactions that deepen learning? The difference is not optimism versus caution. It's designing the interaction, not just policing it. I'm following three design principles in my work. The student drives the inquiry, productive struggle is protected, and the student reflects on what they understand and what they don't. These aren't aspirations, they're engineering constraints on the system behavior. There are two views of how AI can be used in education. The default on the left is answer provider. That's what commercial LLMs are trained to do. So the default response of the AI system is to provide an answer. The success metric, task completed, answer given. The scaffolding is maximal to ensure that the answer is understood. The student's role, the learner's role, is to receive that answer, and what is learned is the answer. I'm suggesting a different modality that I call thought partner. The student asks a question, and the default response of this customized system is to engage in Socratic dialogue with the student, to ask a question. The success metric is student understanding. The scaffolding is the minimum needed for the student to engage successfully in the conversation. The student's role is to construct the learning. What is learned? How to think about the problem. So these are fine and dandy ideas, aspirations that I have in mind. Is it possible to actually customize an off-the-shelf LLM to behave in this way? So I have a proof of concept. I wrote an online textbook, and thank you, Michaela, for the plug. It's called Exploratory Data Analysis for Machine Learning. And so this system consists of off-the-shelf parts here, an open textbook, agent instructions that I've written that embed these design principles, and an LLM subscription. I'm calling the AI tutor the EDA Companion for this particular textbook. Note that no custom software or institutional infrastructure or API integration are needed here. It's off the shelf. So I want to describe to you an interaction. This is between Samantha, who goes by Sam, who's working her way through this textbook. She's on the last chapter, which is devoted to network analysis or graph theory. And there's a particular concept of modularity within graph theory. She's asking about that. Sam asks the AI companion, the EDA companion, how is modularity defined mathematically? The companion replies, what does the book give you for modularity? I'd rather start from there, from what you're working with, than introduce a possibly different formulation. Sam says, I've quoted the book definition in my work file. Wow, I missed that. I didn't read far enough. That answers my question. The companion replies, good. So what I want to point out about this exchange is that it's completely contrary to what an off-the-shelf LLM would provide. The companion is customized to direct Sam back to the book or back to her own notes and to let her do the work. Sam finds the answer. She realized that she hadn't read far enough into the textbook. The mathematical definition she was seeking was there in the textbook. She just missed it on a first reading. She finds it. She says, great, I'm done. That answers the question I had. And the companion just replies with one word, great. And it's out. Why? Because it has been programmed to let Sam drive the conversation. It doesn't initiate a new topic or an extension of the current topic. It lets Sam drive. So that's the idea. So I claim that I've got here a proof of concept. It is possible to customize an LLM to behave in a way that we would like. But this is just a demo. It's not evidence. What we really need is to know for which students can a given tutor deepen learning and in which course context. How would we measure the difference at realistic levels of student engagement? These are research questions, not engineering questions. One person and one tutor cannot answer them. You know, following the ADSA summit this past March, my thinking shifted. I realize now that the contribution the field needs is not another tutor, but a study that we can share. So I'm suggesting a study along the following lines. A coordinated stage study. The field cannot in practice ban AI, and where it is used well, it enhances cognitive work. The question is not whether, but how to design AI in instruction. No single institution can answer the design questions alone. We need several institutions, shared concepts, and common validated instruments. A coordinated stage study in data science programs from community colleges through doctoral programs with data science as the shared substrate. You know, we have ADSA support if we would like, and I would like, to form a working group. The current vision is that this will proceed in stages. Initially a feasibility study, to make sure that we're communicating well, coordinating with one another well, that we're beginning to think through the questions we want to ask and how we want to design the study. Once we have some experience behind us, we should be in a position to seek funds for a pilot and then for a main study. So following today's discussion, this group will grow its leadership and membership. We have an opportunity this fall. Stanford's Learning Strategy Studio, LSS, will run a pilot this fall in Stanford's data analysis courses, one undergraduate and one graduate. This system, LSS, helps faculty equip a tutor with a chosen instructional strategy. It offers learning activities and measures learning through embedded assessment. Institutions can use LSS this fall in their own courses to teach shared core concepts. For example, sampling distributions or association versus causation, rather than adopting a common course. Stanford coordinates IRBs for institutions taking part through LSS. So this would give us a lightweight early start that generates first signal and informs the working group's design of the funded pilot and main stages. And so again, I'm inviting everyone here to get involved, either as a working group member to shape the design of the study, or to provide a course as a study site, or to advise the working group on some specific design elements. The timeline is we can begin as early as this fall or later if that's too fast for some people, but we can begin with a feasibility stage at the next ADSA Leadership Summit in April of next year. This working group will report to the membership on the progress made. And then for the rest of that year and the following year, we will launch the pilot and then main study. We'll need funding for both. If you're interested, please contact Stella Min at ADSA or me, or actually both of us. And here are some resources. Here's our contact information, as well as the textbook I have online and additional transcripts of student interactions. So I'll stop there and ask for questions and comments.
Thank you so much, Tony. That's great. Okay. I was actually curious about your example with Samantha, Sam.
Yeah.
Was that a real person or is that just an example?
That is a character I play. I invented Sam. She's a recent graduate. She's a math major. She has no job experience, no real applied experience. So she's working through the course to enter the job market.
Great. And so presumably you've also had more of these interactions. That's not the only proof of concept. So you probably have a
Yes,
number of examples. Okay.
I
great.
do. There are other people participating as well that are actual people, not invented.
That looks like we have a question, Fred.
Thanks. Michaela. Thanks, Tony. I'm excited about what you're going to present. I wanted to ask, and maybe this is part of the rest of your presentation. So I can see how this custom AI tutor will be helpful for the student who is deeply passionate about their own learning, wants to invest the time. What about the kid who's just unfortunately looking to get the right answer on a homework and they're going to go to their own LLM?
Yeah. So that is a great question. And that's exactly why we need a wider study to look at realistic student scenarios, such as the one you described. So I mean, this would be something for the working group to think through, but it could be part of the study protocol that we can configure this so that the student is actually assembling their own book of what they learned, and they're using that to give an oral report to the instructor. And so if you build in those incentives, then this is yet another stupid obligation imposed upon the poor student by the system, and they're complying as best they can. And then this system of recording their own work, their own thoughts, will help them give a convincing oral account of what they've learned.
So it's for the student who we're supporting students in making good choices.
Yes, that's right.
Thank you.
I'm also hearing that one way to incentivize, I guess maybe incentivize is the wrong word, but engage the student who's not as interested in their own learning goals is to incorporate this kind of tutor directly into required homeworks, right? So they don't necessarily have a choice at that point.
Right.
Okay, got it. Great. Are there any other questions? Oh, I see another one. Go ahead.
Hi, well, thanks for the presentation. I have a question about, what you mentioned at the beginning of the talk, scaffolding.
Yes.
My question is from, from my experience in teaching kids from diverse background, where, I have a lot of stuff to go over, both the data science concept and some domain knowledge. And
Yeah.
I feel there's two kinds of learners. Some students who are pretty good and get a high level idea of sort of the overall thing, but they need help in dive into specific details, right? Technical details. While
Mhm.
there are other kids who kind of, spend a lot of time in getting one concept out of very much, detail, but then kind of, need help in getting a big picture.
Right.
Otherwise, they're less motivated, right? They kind of learn the technical thing, but they don't know how to apply it. So kind of
Right.
in that kind of complex, learning settings, how does AI help?
I think that, I think this is the point of Stanford's emphasis on learning strategies. I think in that scenario, if you're already aware that for this material, students tend to take the high road or the detailed road, you could program the LLM to be on the alert to make sure that students are getting a rounded picture of both. So in the system I've designed, this is tuned to this one textbook, and that can be done for any textbook or any program of instruction, emphasizing certain concepts or making sure that certain ideas or levels are not missed. So I think this is all within the realm of possibility.
Thank
Yeah.
It's great. And I see Linda also has a question in the chat. So Linda asked, could you say a bit more about the pilot this fall? I did not quite catch the details. Would it be enrolling a course or be access to the tool for various student use?
So I'm working through those details with Stanford right now, but they have experience doing this, working with other institutions. So they know how this goes. I'm just getting up to speed here. But the idea would be that there would be a few designated concepts. As I said, one possibility, for example, would be sampling distributions or whatever the working group identified as 1 to 3 perhaps concepts that would be taught, and then those would be taught within the course given at the institution as a regular part of the instruction. But for those particular concepts, this LSS Learning Strategy Studio would be engaged to work with the students on those concepts and to as a part of that work to assess the student understanding. So Linda, did that respond to your question? More to come, I guess I would say.
She says, yes, it's helpful. But in the meantime, we have another question in the chat. Would instructors get feedback on individual student use of the tool tutor?
Yes, I believe so. I think students are anonymized, but the instructor would have a decoder, decoding sheet for that. I have not worked through in detail but there are privacy protections in place in this system. But at the same time, of course, it's helpful for the instructor to get feedback about how each student is doing. So I believe that is in place as part of this system.
Yeah, and you mentioned too that Stanford would take over IRB for this particular instance of the tutor. Have you already identified through Stanford's LSS potential faculty who would be willing to incorporate this in one of their courses?
Well, so Stanford is already lined at Stanford. They have 2 courses lined up for this fall that will engage in this, and they're happy to work with us. If there are member institutions that want to jump in and join in, then we'd all agree on what the common core concepts are going to be and other details. So yes, that's available, and that would continue to be available beyond this fall.
Oh, here's another one. What guardrails would there be to ensure an instructor isn't relying on the tool to cover topics they might only discuss briefly instead of thoroughly? I love that. It's flipping the question on its head. It's not just students, but the faculty who may over-rely on AI. Could this be adaptable to students with accommodations? Also a great question. So almost a two-parter there.
Again, I can't say with absolute certainty, but I believe this has been handled by Stanford. They've tried out this system for instructing medical students, and they've engaged with a number of other institutions on that. And there are always ways to beat the system, and that's a separate discussion, I think. But so there are protections in for privacy and for accessibility, I believe, within the LSS.
And I guess I think part of the other question is about adapting the tool for students that have particular accommodations. I don't know if you've looked at that at all. I imagine the answer is probably yes, but with some work.
Yeah, I think that's the case. I think that would have to be the case to get through the IRB.
Right. Yeah. And also working with folks that are familiar with the needs of students who need accommodations.
Right.
Yeah. We have another one. How would you manage a situation where students do not want to use the AI for ethical reasons?
Yeah, I mean, so that would have to be a policy decision to either let or not, whatever. It could be I think it would be an institutional or maybe even, instructor specific decision about whether to let people opt out. And of course, there's a danger in that the word gets out that, hey, you become a conscientious objector. That's how you get out of this,
Sorry, I'm trying to read the chat and listen at the same time. It looks like we have, another person has responded to that same question, Linda, that they have a growing number of students who oppose the use. This is a big question on our campuses. I think, not to mention faculty resistance. Yeah, the use of AI and the resistance against it, both on the student level and the faculty level, is something we're also hearing across our membership and across campuses. It is, I think, in this case, a much larger existential question than this one tutor. So I would imagine, Tony, the tool that you're trying to implement as a support system for student learning, the use of that tool in a classroom would have to be driven by the faculty person running that class. And policies around that are dependent on the departmental policies. So those are probably questions that are a little bit outside the scope of the actual development of this tool. However, I will say that any working group that wants to come together and talk about this, I think is really useful to think about how to accommodate and to address those kinds of concerns.
Agreed. I think there are many benefits to forming this working group and doing a cross-institutional study and discussion.
Yeah, absolutely. We're almost out of time, but I wanted to get this one last question we have here. And again, this is mentioned as if it's too technical, you don't have to answer now, but what is the training data that is, was it just your textbook or for the LLM?
So, I mean, the LLM itself is trained on this massive amount of data. I used Anthropic's Claude, the latest version I could get a hold of, and then I customized that with specific instructions specific to this course. And there's also the possibility of giving student backgrounds to help tune the tutor to respond correctly or appropriately to the student, given the student's background. So all of that, so that was local information, that is my textbook, a given, and it's optional whether you provide information about each student, but it's possible. And so the more one does that, the more focused you get a response. So that is some labor that would be shared in this feasibility stage, where we're thinking about just a few concepts that we want to examine. So there, the instructions would be focused on those few concepts.
Great. Yeah, thank you so much, Tony. The last comment in the chat is just a comment, so I'll read it out, and then we should probably wrap up because we're getting over time. The last comment says, I wonder if as we move to locally hosted AI models, our campus has some of them running presently, students might feel better about using AI. It wouldn't be some phantom scary data center, it's just a computer running in a server room on campus. And that indeed is how some campuses across our country right now are trying to grapple with or address the limitations, but also the pushback against commercial LLMs. So appreciate that comment. Certainly, those of you who have dropped questions or are inspired by this talk, please reach out to Tony or myself or Stella at ADSA. We would love to continue this conversation and hear from you as we develop this tool alongside Tony. And all of these considerations would be great to include as the project moves forward. Tony, thank you so much for presenting the beginnings of what hopefully will be a very cool project. And we look forward to having our community work with you to move it forward. And thank you, audience, for joining us.
Thank you very much.
Take care, everyone. Have a good rest of your day.
Thank you.